go. And welcome one and all to this special Monday afternoon edition of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, the final bite of 2024. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. So good to have everybody in the house. Like I said, this is the final bite of 2024. Just to give you a heads up, I am not doing another Bethea'S Byte Reloaded until we kick off 2025. So, plus I'm also going to spread a little bit of good holiday wishes before I end this thing out. But before that, I want to start off with a little precursor to my opening story. A wise man once said that streaks are meant to be broken. It's a sad, cruel fact, but yes, streaks are meant to be broken. Last week, I found out that I'm going to have to change one of my favorite sayings because a streak was broken. Last week, a criminal defendant successfully defended himself to a point where he took a plea deal and ended up walking away a free man because he was sentenced to time served. Now, normally, I say a criminal defendant who defends him or herself has practically zero chance of walking away a free person. Franklin Ty Tucker broke that streak. More than 7 years after a deadly altercation at a Florida property, Franklin Ty Tucker is walking free after reaching a plea deal with prosecutors. Tucker represented himself on charges of homicide, robbery, and aggravated assault and battery for a robbery on November 17, 2017. That led to the death of Matthew Bonnet at a property known as the Treehouse. The 2-week trial ended when the jury was unable to come to a unanimous decision, forcing the judge to declare a mistrial. While Tucker had been free on bond during his first trial, he found himself back behind bars after failing to appear for a random urinalysis and for violating his pre-trial condition for leaving his home without approval in May 2024. Tucker was released from jail on November 26th after reaching a plea agreement with prosecutors. According to that agreement, Tucker pleaded no contest to robbery with a dangerous weapon while masked and sentenced to 910 days of incarceration with credit for time served. The state dropped the remaining charges. Had this went ahead and gone to trial, Tucker had faced a potential 30-day sentence if he had been found guilty of all charges by a jury. So, you just got the article regarding that. Now, I'm going to take you right to Court TV and an interview Julia Janae conducted with Franklin Ty Tucker.
We want to turn our attention to a very special guest who is joining us live.
He can't even prove any of that. You can't prove I was there. You can't prove that I actually committed any crime, that I actually did anything. I even discussed a crime with him. You can't even prove that. He can't prove one element of his case, not one.
That was defendant Franklin Ty Tucker. Unofficially here at Court TV, one of the most effective pro se defendants we've seen handling their own case. He has now negotiated a plea deal and is a free man. He defended himself during the trial in this past January, and it ended with a hung jury, declared a mistrial, and we were waiting for a possible retrial in this case. He was accused in taking part in an armed robbery where one man was fatally stabbed and a woman was seriously injured. In November, he pleaded no contest to the charge of robbery with a weapon, and he was sentenced to time served. And he joins us now, the defendant from the Treehouse murder trial that most of you watched here on Court TV, Franklin Ty Tucker. Franklin, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. Tell us first about this news. It's new to us, not new to you. It happened in November, but what is the latest with your case?
Well, I just took a no contest plea, and it got down. They came down and they asked me for, they wanted to do some negotiations, and the thing is, I was looking at things. They've got me behind bars, and I'm trying to do it pro se from behind bars, and they've got the leverage over me of being able to take me to jail, put me in jail whenever they want. Still got the life sentence hanging over my head. But once you understand what no contest means, then all of a sudden it's a little bit of a different story. I told the prosecutors during the negotiations, I was like, look, you find me something where I don't plead guilty and I don't do a single day's worth of punishment. I no probation, not a single day's worth more in jail, nothing like that. And if you can come back with me, with something where we can do that, then we might be able to talk. They came back with me 2 weeks later. There was a couple of things I added on because besides getting no contest and getting time served, the other thing is I also had them waive all the costs of prosecution, which would have been an ungodly amount. I know there's people trying to figure out how much money that is. I'm sure it is an ungodly amount considering how much we spent. However, I looked at it as more of a lateral move. There were some threats thrown back and forth, during the negotiations. And, one of the ones was that they'll just, they knew they couldn't beat me at trial. That much they knew. They actually admitted that. But the bottom line is could they get that one juror every time? And that is actually a very good possibility, especially fighting from jail, that they could go ahead and get at least one juror every time. And they were just planning on taking me back to trial over and over again. Considering Dennis Ward, the state attorney, just won re-election, they could potentially do that for at least the next 4 years and keep me in jail for another 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, that's a question some of our viewers may have about mistrials. There's no limit to how often they can get on jury.
They can keep on taking you back.
And Ty, I remember
and you got to think.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I remember you were very adamant about not wanting to take a deal that included murder. You talked about your kids, and even if you knew you didn't do it, even if you told them that you didn't do it, you didn't want to take something where you would have to say, I did commit this and I was there. Did they offer you time served before? And in exchange for a guilty to murder?
They offered that deal before, but it wasn't a very serious one. When we went to trial, they hadn't talked to their boss. They hadn't talked to the state attorney yet, but they were throwing that around the first time. And the first time I was like, no, I need to, like you just said, for my kids, no, we're here at trial. You're going to have to prove me guilty. And see, that's the thing about no contest. This is where a lot of people make mistakes, and there's been some false headlines out there about me pleading guilty. I have never pled guilty. And, they've never proven me guilty, which is why I consider this kind of a lateral move. It moved me forward, obviously, in the fact that it got me out of jail, and it also removed their leverage. But one of the cool things about pleading no contest is that since I didn't plead guilty, and since they never found me guilty or proved me guilty, that means I can now take it to civil court, and that conviction it doesn't stand. It's not even admissible. So I can go prove my innocence in civil court, which seemed to make a hell of a lot more sense. Why am I going to sit there and allow them to keep me in jail and keep me incarcerated and keep on, making me suffer and using this leverage over my head when, we can go to civil court and that nixes all of that. All that's gone now. They don't have that leverage anymore. As a matter of fact, it changes the dynamics of how we fight this case from now on, because it's not over. I fully plan on proving my innocence in civil court, which now I can do.
Okay.
I'm free to do that.
Okay.
So that was kind of the idea.
I want to make sure our viewers understand, when you're saying that you were in jail, they may remember that you were not in jail during your trial. You walked in and out of the courtroom every day. You were interviewed, sometimes going in by our Court TV reporter, Matt Johnson. So tell me about
I remember.
Why you were behind bars during this time. I understand you were out on probation, and there were some issues there.
Well, I've been very vocal about how dirty the legal system is down there. And, they claim that I missed a UA, but that's actually not true. Even if you read the pretrial, their own report says I went, right? But I go there and they wouldn't let me test that day, right? So I come back and I pass the test, but they tried to say that I didn't go because they wouldn't let me test that day. I have no control over that. That's up to the lab. Now, the judge, instead of doing what he should have done, which he's supposed to give you notice in a hearing, he doesn't do that. He just goes ahead and revokes my bond and puts me back in jail, and then hits me with an outrageous bond of $3.1 million. And I'll tell you right now, because at that point, then I'm going through the divorce with my wife. I have, not only do I not have it, but even if I did have it, I wouldn't have paid it. Because then you're talking about, man, they've already taken $200,000 from us that we'll never see again, and now you're asking for another $300,000. And you got to remember, that means my bond went up from $75,000 because we ended up having to re-up the bond for $75,000, but that means, my bond just went from $2 million to $75,000 to now we're up to $3.1 million. No, the whole idea was to lock me up, tie my hands behind my back, make it incredibly hard to fight, especially as pro se, and and then rush me to trial, because the only reason we didn't end up at trial on September 6th is because I filed a motion to disqualify the judge. And when I did that, then we had to go to the third DCA because obviously he denied the motion. I knew that was coming. He denied the motion, but that meant we had to go to the third DCA, which meant now we had to wait months for the third DCA to make their decision, which gave me plenty of time to get ready for trial, even from jail. Back in jail, I was actually having to handwrite motions and send things via snail mail. You can't send it via email anymore.
Yeah, totally different.
There's a lot of complications fighting.
Totally different
fighting from behind bars.
Litigation. Let's listen back. You mentioned the judge. Let's listen back to one of those moments during the trial where things were quite testy between you and His Honor.
I'm in possession of a video that I would like to show Your Honor that proves that Mr. Mansfield and Mr. Alvarez committed fraud upon the court and fraud upon the jury yesterday in their closing arguments.
Thank you. I'm denying the motion. I recollect that. Can we? No, sir, I'm not going to argue any further. I've heard your motion. I've made my decision.
So it was pretty interesting to watch, but I actually want to play another soundbite quickly and get your reaction to it, Franklin, and that is the testimony of a key witness during your case that you became close to and who unfortunately has since passed away. Let's take a listen to Paula Belmonte, one of the victims in the case against you, who said that you were not the man who committed the crime. Take a listen.
My question is that, is it not reason to believe that if you were committed fraud, as Tom Tucker was involved, that you would lie and say that, oh, no, he wasn't involved?
Absolutely not. He would run hell just about to correct us. Sorry.
If he was involved?
If he was involved.
But you know 100% that he wasn't?
Yes.
So that was Paula during a deposition. She then came and was in a hospital bed when she testified for you, but she's since passed away. How do you think that impacted things for your case and this plea deal?
Well, and in all reality, it actually didn't. We ended up at trial, we ended up using her perpetuated testimony. We ended up using the video of her testimony because we did have problems when we tried to do it from the hospital. But their case again got worse. You got to remember, at trial they didn't. The judge nuked off most of my witnesses, which included another victim who said 100% sure it wasn't me. So I had two victims on my side saying 100% sure it wasn't me. So, and they, and he actually since went back to jail, and they had recordings of him telling somebody that it wasn't me again. So they actually had to provide that in discovery. But the thing is with the judge, you got to remember with the judge disqualified himself a week after trial. And I did make a JQC complaint. For those of you out there who don't know what that is a Judicial Qualifications Commission complaint. And we're going to be, Judge Jones is going to be lucky if he's still sitting on the bench in another month. You know what I mean? They're actually going over the trial. The Judicial Qualifications Commission is going over the video of the trial because, again, that clip you showed, he allowed the prosecutors to lie to the jury in a capital case, especially lie about the murder weapon. You know what I mean? So he's got a lot of issues right now.
Well, like you said,
whether or not, there's talk of him retiring before he gets thrown off, but we'll see.
Allegations that it sounds like the right board is handling and will make a determination on whether that happened. You mentioned, I know you mentioned that you were going through a divorce. We, of course, have heard from your wife during this process because she was a great supporter of you. We definitely recognized her because she's one of the founders, co-founder of CrossFit. And you both joined us on Court TV. You were with Vinnie Politan speaking about just this case. So tell me about your family, your kids, your wife. I know you all are going through this divorce, but how are they handling this new news that you are free and that your case has been dismissed, essentially?
Well, everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. But my wife and I, we are divorced. The divorce actually was finalized while I was in jail. But the thing is since I've been out, no, we've been in contact, and now both of us, it took us a second for us to really believe it was over and that that we've won here, because we have won in a sense. Even what did it for us was we heard Dennis Ward, the state attorney. He got on, did a radio interview. And even during the radio interview, he admits he knows we're going to sue the sheriff's department. He knows we're going to sue the state attorney's office. He knows we're going to sue him personally. And you talk about somebody who did not sound happy about the deal. I definitely sound a lot happier than he does. So it is what it is. But, at that point, we both started, we haven't really quite accepted it's real. You're talking about a 7-year war, right? Basically is what we've been doing here. And, for 7 years, and then to just finally have the war be over, I feel like, like you're some soldier coming back from the battlefield, and man, everybody tells you the war's over, but, again, you just, it's hard to believe. And technically it's not. She's actually helping, she's joining me in the lawsuits because they did a lot of damage to her too. It wasn't just what they did to me. So we're going to be going ahead and, we're looking at law firms right now to handle those lawsuits. Well,
it sounds a 7-year fight that you have been through, and it sounds like a lot more ahead. Franklin Ty Tucker, that's all the time that we have.
Not doing pro se.
But not pro se. I think we would suggest that pro se, not typical, not ideal, but you certainly handled it in a very effective way, and that is clear. So thank you for sharing every step of the way with us here on Court TV, and we will see what is next for you.
That we will see what's next for him, and my God, I'm still amazed how he beat all those odds and still came away sentenced to 910 days of incarceration with credit for time served, walking away a free man. My only question for Franklin Ty Tucker is this: were you a lawyer in a previous life? Oh my gosh. Amy Cruz has been on with me from the beginning. She said he wanted to go pro se to expose corruption in the court. Hey, that sounds reasonable to go pro se for number one, and number two, to defend himself against the charges that he was facing, including homicide, robbery, aggravated assault and battery. Yeah, That's one crazy way to go about it. Next up on the docket, last week, another school shooting. Another day, another school shooting. This time, it's at a Wisconsin Christian school. I'll forego the press conference because it may take us a bit. But the article says that a 15-year-old female student killed 2 people and injured at least 6 others at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. Police identified the shooter as Natalie Rupnow, who went by the name Samantha. Police initially said the assailant killed 4 people, but revised the number back to 2. The victims who died included a teacher and a teenage student, according to Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes. One was pronounced dead at the scene, the other was pronounced dead while on the way to the hospital. Police said that they would identify the deceased at a briefing. 6 other students and a teacher were injured and taken to area hospitals. Police said evidence suggested the shooter died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but made clear that the official cause of death will be released by a county medical examiner. She was pronounced deceased while being moved to the hospital. No officers fired shots during the response to the shooting, according to Barnes. Police said they began receiving reports about an active shooter at 10:57 a.m. that morning. When police arrived minutes later, officers located multiple gunshot victims. Police said a second-grade teacher made the initial call to 911 at the time of the shooting. Initially, the police said it was a student, but clarified that it was actually a teacher. 2 students remained in the hospital at that time in critical condition, according to police. A teacher and 3 other students had non-life-threatening injuries. 2 of them have been released from the hospital. All students who had sheltered during the shooting have been reunited with their families, police said. They're still working to establish a motive. They are searching the suspect's home and conducting interviews with family members. Chief Barnes said they were fully cooperating with the investigation. Police say a document relating to the shooting had surfaced on social media. Officials were still working to verify its authenticity. Chief Barnes encouraged the public to carefully check the sources of information they share about the incident, asking them to rely on trusted journalists and police and other officials to minimize the spread of misinformation. President Joe Biden and Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers said they are closely monitoring the situation. We are praying for the kids, educators, and entire Abundant Life school community as we await more information and are grateful for the first responders who are working quickly to respond. Abundant Life Christian School was founded in 1978 according to its website. It offers classes for children in kindergarten through 12th grade. Again, another school shooting in the United States. Now, I try as hard as I can to stay away from politics, but apparently, when a school shooting happens, politics is involved. So I gotta ask this question, and I will wait for the answer. The question is simply this: what are our lawmakers going to do about this now? I'll wait. And as I wait, I'll go to the next story on the docket. Janine Yaramillo and the fake kidnapping murder trial. That I believe that case is already over and done. In fact, I'm gonna go right to the sentencing in this case before I even go to the article.
What you did that day reminds us that we are vulnerable to the whims of very bad people. It resonates with all citizens of the community how vulnerable we were that day at your hands. I want you to stand for your sentence. With respect to count 1, first-degree murder, Frank Lovato, I'm sentencing you to life imprisonment. With respect to count 2, first-degree murder, Robert Duran, I'm sentencing you to life imprisonment. With respect to count 3, I'm sentencing you to 3 years. Count 4 merges with count 1 and 2. With respect to count 5, I'm sentencing you to 3 years. With respect to count 6, I'm sentencing you to a year less a day. With respect to count 7, I'm sentencing you for a year less a day. Counts 3, 5, 6, and 7 are going to run concurrent to one another, and they will run concurrent to count 2. Thank you. You have the right to appeal.
Your Honor, in terms of count 3...
No, I'm not finding it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow. This judge was not having any of Janine Yaramillo's BS on sentencing. A New Mexico woman sentenced to 2 life sentences for the murders of 2 people, including a police officer, during a high-speed chase. March 2nd, 2022, Janine Yaramillo was in a white Chevrolet Malibu in the parking lot of a Santa Fe apartment building when she asked a pedestrian to call 911, saying she had been kidnapped by a man in her passenger seat with a knife. When police officers arrived at the scene, they saw the vehicle but were unable to get it to stop. Yaramillo led police on a high-speed chase, reaching speeds of over 90 miles an hour and traveling in the wrong direction on I-25. A pickup driven by Frank Lovato was able to avoid colliding with Yaramillo but crashed into a patrol car driven by Officer Robert Duran, killing them both. A second crash caused minor injuries to another driver and a police officer. A third crash disabled Yaramillo's vehicle, and she soon climbed out of the driver's side window. She told police that her boyfriend, Mark Lopez, had been driving and fled on foot, but police never located anyone despite an extensive search. When she was questioned by officers, Yaramillo claimed that her boyfriend had physically attacked her, poured gasoline on her, and kidnapped her before she asked for help. Officers determined she had no visible injuries, her clothes did not smell like gas, and noted that she had no phone number or identifying information for her boyfriend. Officers later determined that the Malibu had been stolen from Las Vegas, New Mexico. The deadly crash was the third time in less than 12 months that Yaramillo was charged with leading police on a pursuit. She pleaded guilty to charges stemming from incidents on September 7, 2021 and on October 8, 2021, where she had stolen vehicles, which she then used to lead police on chases. In each case, she claimed to be a victim of kidnapping, though evidence proved no other people were with her. After several hours of deliberation, a jury found Yaramillo guilty on December 12th of all charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder, fleeing a law enforcement officer, and receiving or transferring stolen vehicles. Well, she got exactly what she deserved. 2 life sentences. I have no sympathy. I have no mercy. Let the chips fall where they may. Let her do her time. She'll, with 2 life sentences, yeah, she'll never see the light of day again. Next up, the alleged Gilgo Beach serial killer now has yet another victim to answer for. Yep, Rex Heuermann is now charged with the death of a seventh woman. Let's go to Court TV's Julia Janae with the identity of this seventh victim.
Rex Heuermann, the suspect in the Gilgo Beach killings, now charged in the death of another woman. This making 7 people that he is charged with killing. That hearing is underway right now over issues, pre-litigation, and the victim that is now part of these charges is 24-year-old Valerie Mack. Her remains were found back in 2000 on Long Island. She's been working as an escort, had been working rather as an escort in Philadelphia, was last seen by her family that year in New Jersey. And the investigation into the Gilgo Beach killings dates back to 2010 when police were searching for a missing woman and then found 10 sets of human remains along a Barrier Island parkway. We're expecting to hear from the district attorney's office this morning with a press conference. They started that hearing about an hour ago. No cameras are allowed inside. So once that hearing is over, we do anticipate hearing something from the prosecution. Let's bring in our guest, though, who's there in New York, retired NYPD deputy inspector and author of Once a Cop. Corey Pegues is with us. Corey, your thoughts on this case, this new news that there's a 7th woman who's being added to the charges. Do you think we will see more in this case?
Yeah, listen, this case has captivated the nation, especially here in New York. I actually reside in Long Island where these crimes happen. I definitely believe that he will be charged with more bodies. And listen, over in that marsh where it's a very extensive area, I wouldn't be surprised if they find more bodies as the years progress.
What do you think it is in terms of the new evidence that kept them from being able to charge him with everyone at once? Because they did already have her remains. Is it the time that it's taking to go back through these likely closed or unsolved case files?
Oh, absolutely. Very tedious process. Again, Judah, I like to tell people police work isn't 40 minutes with 20-minute commercials. So they got to be very tedious in the process to make sure and ensure that once they connect the dots, it's going to stick when they present it.
Yeah, we're seeing those images of the other 6 women who we already knew he was facing those charges for, and now Valerie Mack is the 7th woman that will be added to this list. What does this look like, you think, for families, Corey, when they have no answers for all of these years, and then finally they are hearing that there may be a break in the case?
Well, listen, it brings closure to the family. At least the family can get some closure. And let's just be honest and serious. Thankful that former police commissioner Rodney Harrison came into that police department and made it a priority his first day on the job that he was going to solve that Gilgo Beach murder case.
And you see there that live pic of the podium inside of that courthouse where they are going to be holding that press conference at any moment. We know that hearing is going on. We don't have cameras in that courtroom to show you what's going on in the hearing, but we anticipate that the prosecution may allude to the hearing, but will no doubt make that announcement about the next person who is now on this list and what the process will be for Rex Heuermann, who of course has been behind bars as former architect there in New York. So we'll turn our attention back here once someone does come to that podium.
I gotta stand by what Amy Crew just said a little bit ago. So that Rex Heuermann is currently in Delulu town. The train has just reached the station. DNA does not lie. I totally agree with that. And then she just added this: these serial killers love the attention. That's another known fact. I have seen a lot of these serial killer cases just like this, and I've never seen a one that didn't love the attention. As far as now we have 7 victims, 7, including the one that they just named, Valerie Mack. Like I said with the Diddy case, 1, maybe I'm wrong. 2, I might be wrong. In this case, there's 7. And the DNA is linking back to Rex HEUERMANN. 7? 7's my lucky number. There's no way. There's no way if I'm investigating this case and I'm seeing all this DNA evidence linking back to him, there is no way I can be wrong here. There's no possible way, and Amy Crew actually agrees with me. But as always, we gotta watch this thing. We gotta watch this thing. Let it play out. Next up, Luigi Mangione, the man accused of killing the CEO of United Healthcare. He is now charged with murder as an act of terrorism. For more, again, we go back to Court TV. As it is your front row seat to justice.
Good afternoon. I'm Alvin Bragg, Manhattan District Attorney. I'm honored and privileged to be joined by Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch. First and foremost, I want to extend my deepest condolences to Mr. Thompson's loved ones and colleagues. His family deserves our respect as they continue to grieve. Our work will never be able to undo the fact that a life was lost. We are here to announce that Luigi Mangione, the defendant, is charged with 1 count of murder in the first degree and 2 counts of murder in the second degree, including 1 count of murder in the second degree as an act of terrorism for the brazen, targeted, and premeditated shooting of Brian Thompson, who, as you know, was the CEO of United Healthcare. This case was made possible by the collaborative efforts of the phenomenal public servants you see before you today, and so many others who are not here. I'm honored to lead the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and privileged to serve alongside Assistant District Attorneys Joel Seidman, Kristen Bailey, and Zachary Kaplan, who were working from the outset, hand in hand, with the greatest police department in the world. The chief of our trial division, Lisa Del Pizzo, and the deputy chief, Chris Prefos, provided sage oversight and direction. And I want to acknowledge our high technology analysis unit. There was a lot to be processed here. Steve Moran, in particular, who heads that, and Marco Popik. We are privileged here at the DA's office to work every day with the phenomenal public servants at the NYPD. It has been a distinct pleasure to work besides Commissioner Tisch, an exemplary partner, and Chief of Detectives Joseph Kinney. Almost every day we're in touch, and his leadership is second to none. And then Deputy Commissioner Rebecca Weiner, who, as I tell her, there are a lot of challenging things happening in the world, and I sleep better at night knowing that she is the Deputy Commissioner in charge of terrorism. The detectives on this, out doing the courageous frontline work, Detective Oscar Diaz, Detective Curcio, exemplary, the finest. It wasn't just those of us here in New York. I want to acknowledge the great work of our partners in Altoona, the Altoona Police Department, the Blair County District Attorney's Office, the governors of New York and Pennsylvania, the FBI, and of course, the brave members of the public who answered the call when our great commissioner put out the call for their assistance. This was a frightening, well-planned, targeted murder that was intended to cause shock and attention and intimidation. It occurred in one of the most bustling parts of our city, threatening the safety of local residents and tourists alike, commuters and business people just starting out on their day. Let me say a bit more about the charges. They include 1 count of murder in the first degree as a killing in furtherance of terrorism, 2 counts of murder in the second degree, 1 charging that the killing was done as an act of terrorism, and the second pertaining to the fact that the killing was intentional. The maximum penalty possible for murder in the first degree and murder in the second degree as an act of terrorism is life without parole. The maximum penalty for murder in the second degree is 25 years to life. There are additional counts as well. A number of criminal possession of weapon charges, 2 counts in the second degree, 4 counts in the third degree, 1 count in the fourth degree, and a count of criminal possession of a forged instrument in the second degree. Let me tell you a bit about the facts. On November 24th, we allege that the defendant arrived in New York City to murder Brian Thompson. After the defendant arrived in New York City on a bus at Port Authority, he checked into the hostel on the Upper West Side using the name Mark Rosario with a fake New Jersey ID. On the morning of December 4th, the defendant left the hostel, just after 5:30 a.m. and traveled to Midtown. For nearly an hour, we allege the defendant waited in the area near the Hilton Hotel, waiting for Mr. Thompson to appear. From 6:38 a.m. to 6:44 a.m., the defendant stood across from the entrance of the hotel on West 54th Street. When he saw Mr. Thompson, he crossed the street and approached him from behind. We allege he then took out a 9mm 3D printed ghost gun, equipped with a 3D printed suppressor, and shot him once in the back and once in the leg. The defendant then fled northeast on 54th Street and took an e-bike uptown before getting into a taxi that took him to West 178th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. On December 9th, the defendant was spotted at McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. The local police were notified, he was arrested, and he was found with a 9mm handgun, a suppressor, 2 ammunition magazines, and the same fake New Jersey ID he used at the hostel. I want to say a word about ghost guns. These weapons are increasingly proliferating throughout New York City and the entire country. Involving technology will only make this problem worse. Last year, over 80 ghost guns and ghost gun parts were recovered in Manhattan alone. The NYPD and the Manhattan DA's office have been leading in the
highest charges being charged with murder in the first degree, 2 counts of murder in the second degree, one of which includes terrorism. We are going to hit the pause button. We need to squeeze in a break. When we come back, we're going to get you back in for more from the district attorney.
Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was gunned down. Police have arrested Luigi Mangione.
Court TV and Scripps News take you inside the investigation that's captured the nation's attention.
We do not kill people in cold blood.
The motive.
One line reads, these parasites had it coming.
The manhunt.
It feels good to get a guy like that off the street.
And what's next for the accused assassin?
Assassination of a CEO. A Court TV and Scripps News special report. Wednesday at 7 on Court TV.
I pause that just to let you know that that special day advertising, I do not have that broadcast, so I would bring it to you, but just know right now, just know this one, all the charges you're hearing for Luigi Mangione, those are the charges that he is being hit with. And Amy Crew is right. Brian Thompson's family is going to have a rough holiday this week. Absolutely. And the second thing I wanted to mention is that they were having a hearing make these charges formal, and where Luigi Mangione can put his official plea likely not guilty. So we're gonna hear more from District Attorney Alvin Bragg right now.
Today.
Let's get you back to New York, where we are listening to a press conference held by the District Attorney of Manhattan, Alvin Bragg, regarding charges against Luigi Mangione in the alleged murder of healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
Prediction of these ghost guns, and one thing I want to make clear, they're unserialized, they can be printed out, but as this case tragically makes clear, they are just as deadly as traditional firearms. This will remain a priority for us here in Manhattan. Finally, I know there have been questions about the extradition process. The latest that I can offer you is that the defendant is currently scheduled to appear in court in Pennsylvania on Thursday morning, first for a preliminary hearing on his Pennsylvania charges. Immediately to follow that will be an extradition hearing. We have indications that the defendant may waive that hearing, in which case he'd be brought to New York forthwith. In any event, we have been preparing on parallel paths, and before the hearing, we'll send to the governor of the state of New York the paperwork that would be necessary if he does not waive during that hearing. I now want to turn over to our great commissioner, and when I do so, I want to thank her for her partnership, not only on this matter, but on all we do every day together. Thank you.
All right, the DA being heard there, criminal defense attorney Sam Bassett still with me. Sam, tell me your reaction as you hear the charges. We know murder in the first degree, 2 counts of murder in the second degree, including terrorism, and then additional multiple counts, including multiple counts of possession of a criminal weapon.
I think every possible charge that could have been made has been made, and the indictment is an important stage because a grand jury considered at least the evidence, some of the evidence, and returned these indictments fairly quickly. So it's moving along fairly quickly. The charges are serious. Obviously, life without parole is the ultimate outcome if he's convicted of the highest murder charge.
And it is moving along fairly quickly. It leads me to this question. The extradition, you can't do that without charges in New York, right? So that may be part of the reason they've had to speed it along, or not at all?
Correct. I think the indictment actually buttresses the charge, the official charges, and the credibility of those charges in the extradition process. And the only other remaining issue is identity. And that's a given in this case.
Is this a case that is, I don't know how to ask the question correct. It's a capital case, right? We know that. But how does one determine whether or not death penalty is appropriate or not for this kind of case?
Well, I understand that New York does not have the death penalty, and the highest punishment for a criminal case in New York is life without parole. So I don't think the death penalty is on the table.
It is not. You are correct, but that leads me to my next question, because some people talk about this. A lot of states, it would be a death penalty case. Life without parole. If convicted of the highest charge, there's a good chance the sentence would be life without parole. What does that look like for a criminal defendant? Does that mean he could end his days if there's a conviction? We know he's presumed innocent. If there's a conviction, and if that's the sentence, does it mean that the reality is he may be in jail for every day of the rest of his life?
I think it is, unless a governor or an executive branch grants some sort of commutation or clemency later on due to, if somebody's very elderly and in failing health, sometimes a commutation will be granted so they can die not in prison. But I think the likelihood, if he's convicted, is that he will die in prison.
And the terrorism, so the 2 counts of murder in the second degree, DA Bragg made clear one of those is based on terrorism, act of terrorism. Does that surprise you at all? Given, sometimes I think people think of terrorism, there's a threat against everyone. But he did say when he came into the city and started doing this, there were bystanders everywhere. Are you surprised by the terrorism count?
A little bit, but I'm not as familiar with that statute as some might be. But I think obviously the killing being part of a greater plan, sending a greater message, and obviously the fact that it's done in Midtown Manhattan is particularly dangerous. Not just obviously the person that shot Mr. Thompson, but bystanders, and the terrorism charge addresses that reality that in today's world we have people setting out to kill people sometimes for a work view of a greater cause that they're advancing.
Right. So let me ask you this. As a criminal defense attorney, he has a very reputable criminal defense attorney. How much work does it take at the front end for a case of this magnitude as an attorney representing someone accused of murder?
It is a lot of work. You're getting a lot of input from a lot of sources. You have to build a team. One lawyer can't do this case. I imagine this attorney representing him has a lot of experience, and she was a prosecutor for a long time. So the court will give her some leeway in putting her team together and putting the case together for the defense and evaluating the evidence as it comes in.
Right, yeah, it is a lot of work. And for the investigators, even if they announce the charges, that doesn't mean that they do not have a lot of work in front of them, because it's an ongoing investigation. That is in no means shored up at this point in time.
Yeah, Amy Crew just brought up a good point that that if he thought he was getting poor health care before, can you imagine what kind of health care he's going to get behind bars? And I agree with that. I mean, if he was getting poor health care before, that doesn't mean that. I mean, killing the CEO, that's going to make it better? Come on, man. Anyway, all the charges you've heard, for first degree murder, second degree murder, murder as an act of terrorism, he's being charged with all of that. And we'll just have to ride this thing out, let this thing go to trial. Let's see how that was gonna go for him. 2025 is going to be one heck of a year for trials. Next up, we have the verdict, I believe, in the teacher's deadly driving trial, Colorado versus Amy Weiss. And since we have no video for this, I can go ahead and give you what the ruling is now. A middle school teacher in Colorado has been convicted of careless driving, resulting in the death after hitting a 10-year-old boy who was riding a bicycle. 54-year-old Amy Weiss stood trial on the single charge after the August 2023 death of 10-year-old Oliver Stratton. The incident occurred in a neighborhood just before 6 o'clock p.m. In a news release, the Larimer County Sheriff's Office said several environmental factors impacted visibility for both Weiss and Stratton, and evidence of distracted driving was found. At the start of her trial on December 16th, Weiss pleaded guilty to a charge of tampering with physical evidence. Prosecutors said she deleted a text shortly after the crash. She faces up to a year in jail on each of the 2 charges at her sentencing scheduled for March 7th. Following that guilty verdict, Stratton's parents said in a statement, "Today, the driver who killed our son, Ali, was found guilty. While this verdict brings some measure of accountability, we are so grateful for the hard work of the District Attorney's Office and the Larimer Sheriff. It does not bring justice, not for Ali, not for our family, and not for the countless victims of distracted driving. The charges in this case were never enough to reflect the gravity of what happened. Our son's life was worth more than misdemeanors. Ali was 10 years old, a bright, joyful boy with his whole future ahead of him. Yet the system has treated his death as a minor offense that will always be a source of deep pain for us. Distracted driving is an epidemic. It takes lives, shatters families, and leaves an irreparable hole in communities like ours. We miss our son every day and every minute, but we remain committed to honoring his memory by working to create real impactful change that will make roads safer for all of us. When it comes to distracted driving, they're telling us all the time. Hang on, let me show you my let me get my cell phone real quick. This thing right here, this can wait. If you're driving, this can wait. Focus on where you gotta go. Focus on everything around you. Focus on all things that you can hurt somebody or somebody can hurt you, because that motor vehicle you're in, that can be considered a weapon of destruction. Like Ali's mother just said. I'm gonna read that back again. Distracted driving is an epidemic. It takes lives, shatters families, and leaves an irreparable hole in communities like theirs. And it's so truthful. I mean, Amy said that she can't believe this. She was only charged with a misdemeanor. I totally agree with you. It's a misdemeanor, but look how costly it is. A 10-year-old is no longer with that family. There's gonna be, okay. Let me put this in perspective. At the point we're at now, there's gonna be a seat missing at the dinner table. That's obvious. But when when they wake up in the morning, there's going to be one less person to wrap a present for. When they wake up the very next morning, they're not going to be able to hear the pitter-patter of those little feet rushing under the tree to see what present Santa brought them. All because he was taken away from them by distracted driving. I'm no driver and no better than this. I'll say once again, this right here can wait. This can wait. Your life and the lives of others cannot. Think about it. What's more important? That phone call or your life? What's more important? Your phone call or the lives of others around you while you're on the road? Think about it. Next on my docket. Every time I see this person's name up, I keep thinking, This woman has to have the coolest name for a criminal defendant. Taylor Shabusiness. Taylor Shabusiness is charged with battery against a prison guard. Taylor Shabusiness is currently serving a life sentence at Taycheedah Correctional Facility in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, for the February 22 murder of Shad Farian. Okay, now that I got that name straight. According to a criminal complaint on July 24th, Shabusiness requested medical attention for a staple that lodged in her arm after a reported fall. A sergeant, later referred to as the victim in the complaint, handcuffed Taylor and took her to a medical room to meet with a nurse. The nurse says that in the complaint that Shabusiness was laughing the entire time, and when the nurse asked what was so funny, Shabusiness responded that nothing was funny. The nurse then warned Shabusiness that it might hurt a little bit as she approached with tweezers, but as soon as the tweezers made contact with the staple on Shabusiness's arm, she pushed the nurse out of the way and lunged out of her chair at the nurse, according to the complaint. At this time, the victim stepped in so the nurse could safely exit the room. Shabusiness and the victim struggled with a medical tray, which at one point was swung at the victim. The victim stated that her head was hit, she had bruised ribs, and her arm hurt. Additionally, the victim was exposed to pepper spray during the altercation. Shabusiness is facing 1 count of battery by prisoner. She has a preliminary hearing scheduled for. Oh, this is good. She has a preliminary hearing scheduled for my birthday, February 7th, at the Fond du Lac County Courthouse. Oh boy. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on. First off, the name. Amy says that she invented that name with her husband when she got married, and I still say it's the coolest name for a criminal defendant. I'll stand by it. But getting back to what she's being charged with, I can actually see this happening. Why? Because she actually, when she was originally on trial for the murder of Shad Farian, she actually attacked her own attorney. Let me say that again in case you guys missed it in the back. Taylor Shabusiness actually attacked her own attorney when she was on trial for the murder of Shad Farian, which she was found guilty of. So, if she's willing to attack her attorney, who's to say that she won't attack a prison guard or any other prison official? This woman, as cool as her name may sound, this woman is dangerous. Yeah, happy birthday to me. They have great views of the defendant in Wisconsin. Oh, absolutely. And they're gonna get more great views when she has this preliminary hearing on my birthday in Wisconsin. And I can see this being an easy guilty because she's that dangerous. She's that violent. Next on the docket, we have a verdict in the killing in a convenience store trial, North Carolina versus Taisir Taz Zarka. As you remember, as you remember, this man was charged with killing a customer who went to shop, for stabbing a suspected shoplifter. He was charged with second-degree murder of Mark Thomas Garrity Jr., who was stabbed to death inside Zarka's store in Raleigh in April 2023. And on the set, well, I'll let you see this for yourself.
Welcome back. We've been watching the sentencing hearing in North Carolina for murder defendant, convicted murderer now, Taz Zarka. He is that convenience store owner that was charged with second-degree murder but found guilty of manslaughter by a jury yesterday, accused of killing and found guilty of killing 27-year-old Mark Garrity. And now it is time for the judge to impose the sentence. Let's watch.
I wanted to make sure we were clear because, respectful, I know that Mr. Newton had stopped at that portion, but it also said, but the decision to depart from the presumptive range is in the discretion of the court. And I respect our law and laws, and I respect our legislators. They're not sitting here. They're not sitting here. We have 3 branches of government, and the judicial is one of those branches. I respect the legislators, and they give me the opportunity to look at the law and follow the law. But they also tell me that I have discretion. In any republic, at least in these United States, when the judge, he or she, has discretion, that means judicial discretion. And with judicial discretion, for any judge, he or she has to look at the totality of the circumstances. I keep asking myself in this case, with all of the things that the supporters of Mr. Zarka said, and even Mr. Zarka's own words, with all of the things they've said about him giving the shirt off his back, giving people drinks and food, if that's who he is, why wasn't he that person on April the 6th of 2023? Why not just give Mark the drink? If that's who he is, why not just give him the drink? And it doesn't escape the court. If you look at that video, when Mr. Zarka comes around the counter and pulls his knife out and heads towards Mark. Where was Mark? Mark was headed towards the counter. What did he have in his hands? A bag and ice cream. Well, if Mark was this true person that was going to just rob and steal, he had the ice cream in his hand. In plain view. It tells me, using reason and common sense, he was probably walking to the counter to pay for the ice cream because it was in his hands. Was he going to conceal that right there at the counter? He had the ice cream in his hands. Mr. Zarka even testified he never actually saw Mark conceal the Gatorade. Let's say Mark did conceal it. That's fine. But if this man is somebody who says he will take the shirt off his back and give it to somebody, give them drinks and food, why not do it that day on April the 6th? As I said, Mark was walking up with a bag and ice cream in his hand. It would have been a different story if Mark had walked in with a gun and said, with a mask on, give me all your Gatorade. He didn't do that. He didn't walk in there with a gun and say, give me all your Gatorade. He didn't try to hide his face. From what I saw, I think he was walking up to pay for the ice cream. And it wouldn't shock me if the ice cream was cheaper than the Gatorade. And he may have enough money to pay for the ice cream and not for the delivery. But did he deserve to die for that? No. 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 You know, I'm a judge.
The judge, this whole trial, this judge has been great, Judge Gregory. He is not just going to lay out a sentence, he is going to tell a story and then deliver the sentence. Jack writes, before we hit a break, this guy, the way he interacted with the family members, especially the victim, he's got a heart. I mean, he's not an old jaded judge that just, it's refreshing to see.
Yeah, when we think about what makes a good judge, what makes a good judge is somebody who can make hard decisions. What makes a good judge is somebody who can understand the analysis of it. But this is also about humanity. This is also about life. This is also about struggle. This is about the ability to look at these people and say, I stand before all of you and I will treat all of you as fairly as I possibly can. I love it when I see a judge like this apply the law like this and never forget at the same time that they're just lucky to be on the bench themselves and they're going to apply it with as much common sense as they possibly can. I love that.
Yeah, and the storytelling and all that is so because we do see a lot of judges who do not want to explain anything, don't feel they have to. You know, you talk about that judge up in Indiana with the Richard Allen case. Doesn't care if people watch the trial. It's her world, and there's a ton of judges who have that sort of feeling that
we call that Ted the Black Robe Syndrome. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's called. What happens is when you wrap that robe around yourself, at a certain point you start to disconnect from everything around you and everybody around you, and you start seeing your role through this myopic lens. Well, the difference between those kinds of people and Judge Gregory here is the ability that this is somebody who is looking at the entire room. He's looking at everybody involved, and you realize that the victims are all of those family members, but also the people who stood up and said, I'm behind Mr. Zarka, and said, let's look at the disconnect between what you said, which we appreciate, and why he didn't apply to this day. Right. That's the brilliance of somebody like this who can do that, balancing both sides. I love that so much.
Indeed. All right, Jack Rice, thank you as always. Always fantastic to talk to you. Have a great holiday season. If we don't talk to you before, quick break, more of The Judge right after this. Order. Country today in North Carolina, we've been watching the sentencing hearing for Taz Zarka in the killing of the convenience store trial. In the jury found him guilty of manslaughter. That was a lower charge. We're going to go back there, pick up the judge's sentence just momentarily. We're also in Pennsylvania, the defendant in the CEO shooting case. Back in court this morning, Luigi Mangione now on his way to New York, extradited and now into custody of NYPD. We'll have a live report coming up from Scripps reporter Avajoy Burnett later this hour. And in New Mexico, defendant Janine Jaramillo returns to court this afternoon for sentencing. We've been watching her dramatic trial over this past week. We'll finish up the trial and watch the sentencing together. 4:30 Eastern time. She's facing 8 charges related to faking her kidnapping and leading police on that high-speed chase that ended up with 2 people dead. Jaramillo was convicted of at least one of those charges. We're not going to tell you which one yet. Was it the top charge? We'll find out this afternoon, and then we'll watch the sentencing. It should be very emotional. Family members expected to address the court and address this woman who made up that crazy story that ended up taking 2 wonderful lives. 4:30 Eastern. Again, we'll have that for you on Court TV. Let's head back to North Carolina. We're all waiting. What's going to happen to Taz Zarka? The defense wants the judge to depart down, go less than the 5-year mark that he is facing for the involuntary manslaughter charge. The state and the victim's family want the max. Let's see what the judge does. Let's pick it up right where we left off.
I want to make sure I'm clear about this. His addiction did not kill him. Mr. Zarka did. An addiction doesn't care about your race, your gender, your religion, your sexual orientation. because it's a disease. That's what it is. It's a disease. And I commend Mark for recognizing that and wanting to deal with it. I commend him for that. And I want to remind you, Shauna, where are you? You have a responsibility to continue to remain sober. Do it for you. You have that responsibility. You're not a bad person. You're not a villain. You have a disease. That's what it is. Mark had a disease. That's what it was. It hits everybody. Doesn't make a difference the type of job you have either. It's a disease. I think Mr. Latour said, he said, Judge, the state did its job, the defense did its job, and the jury did its job. And he politely said, or inferred, that now it's time for the court to do its job. And Mr. Latour and Mr. Newsom, I say ad nauseum, without fault, that I've been a prosecutor, I've been a defense attorney. The DA has an objective, the defense has an objective, but the court has a responsibility. And I took an oath. I took an oath to follow the law and to be fair and impartial. And I live by that. And there may be some in the audience, respectfully, or out there, that want to blame people. This court takes I don't have a dog in this fight. But what I do have, and what the citizens of North Carolina have entrusted me to do, is to be fair and impartial, follow the law, but not forget my common sense. My common sense tells me, respectfully, that Mr. Zarka had a choice. In that video, he gave a little boy chocolate. He gave a little boy chocolate. That was somebody's son. He could have given the Garrity's son the Gatorade. He could have done that. He could have done that. He didn't have to pull out a knife. He didn't have to go towards your son and then stab him in the heart, in the heart. And if he was so scared and afraid for his life, he could have stayed behind that counter and called these people that we call law enforcement officers. When your son came to the counter, he could have said, I know you've got Gatorade and I know you've stolen it. I'm not going to let you come back to my store anymore. You're trespassed from my store. He could have said that. Reason and common sense. Reason and common sense. $3.25, $3.90, whatever it costs for a bottle of Gatorade, that's worth losing somebody's life over? Really? Are you telling me that's worth it? And I'm going to say this, for those of you that may be animated in the audience, for those of you that said, Mr. Zarka is this and that, if this had happened to your child, you'd be sitting right behind Mr. Latour, sitting right behind him. Because if you're a parent, you love your child. So no, Mark Garrity is not, in my eyes, a thief, a crook, someone addicted to drugs. He's a human being. He was a human being deserving of just that modicum of respect as a human being. So, yes, I will fine Mr. DA and Mr. Knudsen. I think the court can recognize the mitigating factors that have been indicated or enumerated by Mr. Knudsen on the record. But the court will also find these mitigating factors in my discretion do not outweigh a presumptive sentence. Given that factual pattern that occurred and what this court saw, no, this is not a mitigated sentence. And my job is not to punish, because I'm not up here to punish out of any selfish means and so forth. My job is to be fair and impartial, and also not to forget to use my reason and common sense. My reason and common sense tells me, respectfully, that this sentence is deserving of a prior record level 1, Class D felony. I will sentence Mr. Zarka to 64 months minimum to 89 months maximum. That is the maximum I'm allowed to do under the law, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to give him all the credit he's entitled to by law. This is an active prison sentence. I'll make a finding of fact that he's serving a lengthy sentence, and when I say lengthy, it will never compare to the sentence that Amy and Mark Garrity Sr. will have for the rest of their lives. I had the opportunity, as I always do every morning, to text my son and tell him I love him. And he always has the opportunity to respond. Amy and Mark won't have that. So, give him all the credit he's entitled to. I'll make us finding that he's serving an active sentence, therefore I'll waive the court costs unless there's an agency that needs to be heard. When he comes out on post-release supervision, he shall have no contact whatsoever with the Garrity family. While he's incarcerated, he shall have no contact with the Garrity family. While he's incarcerated, he shall participate in any anger management classes that are available to him while he's incarcerated. If in fact there are no anger management classes out on post-release supervision, he shall be required in order to participate in any anger management programs that are available after consulting with his post-release supervision probation officer. While he is on post-release supervision, it may sound nominal, but I still believe it's important to have him do some community service. I'm going to order him to do 100 hours of community service while he is on post-release supervision, which means that when he comes out of prison...
All right, the judge sentencing Taz Zarka to 64, at the minimum to 89 months. That means he's doing a minimum of 5 years in prison for this murder. The involuntary manslaughter verdict handed down yesterday by a jury, and now this sentence, which is what the state was asking for and the family, and not what the defense wanted. They wanted a downward departure.
Yeah, Taz Zarka will serve at the minimum, as I just put in your chat, at 5 years, 4 months minimum. 5 years, 4 months minimum to about, if my math serves me right, 7 years and 5 months maximum. Undercharged? Maybe. Let's look at everything he was charged with. Oh, that's right. He pleaded guilty to a lesser included charge of voluntary manslaughter. So there's that. 64 to 89 months for voluntary manslaughter. Next, we have the Alexander brothers. A friend of the Alexander brothers surrendering in a sexual assault case. Ohio fisherman returned early from his honeymoon in Japan to surrender at the Miami-Dade courthouse. Mm-hmm. 39-year-old fisherman returned early from his honeymoon in Japan to surrender at the Miami-Dade County Courthouse on a charge of sexual battery by multiple perpetrators. He was later released on a $25,000 bond, with his new wife and mother-in-law putting up another $260,000 in collateral. According to investigators, fishermen helped twins Olan and Oren Alexander rape a woman on December 31st, 2016. They say that Alon Alexander invited the woman to his Miami Beach apartment for a New Year's Eve barbecue, sending her photos with people already in attendance. When she arrived, however, the only two people present were the twins, fishermen, and two maids. The woman told police that the Alexanders and fishermen took her into a bedroom where fishermen held her down while the twins took turns raping her. She was told not to tell anyone. Mr. Fishman is anxious to resolve this and vindicate his name, according to defense attorney Jeffrey Sloman to reporters. That alleged assault is one of 3 allegations the Alexander twins face in Florida State Court. They and their older brother, Tal, are also charged in a federal indictment out of New York, accusing them of luring, drugging, and violently raping dozens of women. An FBI agent testified at a hearing that about 40 women have accused them of sexual assault between 2010 and 2011, often in gang rapes. All 3 of the Alexander brothers remain in custody in Florida. They have denied the allegations, saying through their attorneys that any sex was consensual. Oren and Tal are known for brokering deals on high-end properties in New York City and Miami for clients that included Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, Liam Gallagher, and Lindsay Lohan. In 2022, they started a new real estate company called Official. Alon Alexander attended law school and joined the family's private security business. So now they've got those guys hemmed up in such a mess. It almost sounds like the same thing Diddy's dealing with. Diddy and Jay-Z. And speaking of which, it's now time for another edition of Diddy Do It. In this edition, Jay-Z's lawyers are challenging the rape lawsuit and Diddy appears in court. Here's the details. Jay-Z's lawyers asked the judge to speedily extract the rapper from a lawsuit in which a woman alleges she was sexually assaulted by Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs when she was 13. The unidentified woman recently added Jay-Z, whose legal name is Sean Carter, to her lawsuit against Combs in Manhattan federal court, alleging that she was attacked by the singers in 2000 after Combs' limo driver offered her a ride to an MTV Video Music Awards after party. In their court filing, Jay-Z's lawyers cited a recent television interview in which the woman acknowledged inconsistencies with her story. The filing came before Combs appeared for a pre-trial hearing in his criminal case. After the lawyers discussed evidentiary deadlines, prosecutors told Judge Aaron Subramanian that any new charges against the hip-hop mogul before a May trial would require minimal new evidence to be shared among lawyers. In the criminal case, Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that the Bad Boy Records founder coerced and abused women for years with help from associates and employees. Combs, who has been jailed without bail for 3 months, hugged his lawyers and touched his heart as he acknowledged his children among spectators. In the civil case, one of several filed against him, the women originally asserted that she was raped by Combs at the after-party, but did not mention Jay-Z. NBC aired an interview in which she said she spoke with musicians Benji Madden and his brother at the party, and her father picked her up after the alleged assault. NBC also reported that a representative of the Maddens said they were touring the Midwest during the VMAs, and her father said he does not recall what would have been a drive home of more than 5 hours. Jay-Z said the article proves that Tony Busby, a personal injury lawyer in Houston, filed a false complaint against him for money and fame. Attorney Terry R. Garagos, representing Combs, has said the TV interview was part of the beginning of the end of this shameful money grab. In the newly filed court papers, Jay-Z's lawyers wrote that the allegations, quote, have caused incalculable harm to Mr. Carter, his family, his businesses, his employees, and his legacy, end quote. Busby told the Associated Press via email that the plaintiff's lawyers plan to respond in court to the latest filing. They continue to file meritless motions that are contrary to the rules, which have absolutely no merit, Busby said. Busby announced in October that he represents some 120 people, men and women, with allegations of sexual conduct against Combs. Jay-Z and Combs gained fame in the 2000s, emerging as wide-ranging entrepreneurs and two of the world's wealthiest rappers. Earlier this year, Forbes estimated Jay-Z's net worth to be $2.5 billion. The artists have collaborated over the years, with Jay-Z featured on Combs' debut album, No Way Out, and Combs appearing on Jay-Z's sophomore albums, In My Lifetime, Volume 1. Let's see. Yes, that's exactly how it comes out. That's exactly how it comes out. Did he do it? And as far as having Jay-Z on this lawsuit, there's got to be a little something more before I can say, did Jay-Z and did he do it? But right now, I'm gonna hang on to this. I'm gonna hang on. I'm gonna wait to see what else develops before we get down to it. So all I can say is 2025. Stay tuned for another episode of Did He Do It? All right. Next up, a trial date is set as Lindsay Clancy claims lack of criminal responsibility. Her attorneys have filed a notice that they will be relying on expert testimony about her mental status for her defense.
But first, an update out of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where a trial date has now been set for the defendant, Lindsay Clancy. During a hearing earlier this week, the court set the trial date for December 1st of next year, 2025. Court records also show that Clancy is expected to seek an insanity defense. She's accused of strangling and killing her 3 kids back in January of 2023, but her defense points to Clancy's past mental health issues, including postpartum depression and medications that she was taking at the time of her alleged mental break. Clancy is currently being held at a psychiatric hospital awaiting her trial. We'll continue to keep you updated on this case with any new developments as we get them in our newsroom.
And when they get that news, I'll be sure to bring it to you. That's my commitment for 2025 here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. whatever new information on any story that we bring that is brought to my attention, whatever new development comes, and once they get it at Court TV, I'm bringing it to you. Next up, despite the fact that he's accused of his wife's murder, Brad Simpson is getting more contact with his children. But he still can't have contact with his youngest daughter.
We're going to turn now to Texas. A man charged with murdering his wife is asking to be released from jail pending trial. Now, a judge sets new conditions for Brad Simpson following his second court appearance this month. Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas joins us now with a debrief.
Good evening, Michael. Brad Simpson's defense filed a motion for today's bond hearing to modify Simpson's pretrial conditions. The news coming out of that brief hearing is that Brad Simpson will now be allowed to contact some of his 4 children that he shared with his wife and the woman he's accused of murdering, Suzanne Simpson. 2 of those children are minors, so we had to censor their names when spoken in court.
We have the 5-year-old on. We are not asking the court to change the no contact order that is currently in place. We're asking for a complete no contact order, no contact allowed. For who is 15, we are asking the court to change the no contact order to a no harmful or injurious contact order. However, contact with will be limited only to letters, and those letters will be subject to monitoring by CPS.
Judge Joel Perez ultimately granted those requests made by the state, upholding the no contact order between Brad and his youngest daughter and allowing communication between him and his teen son through monitored letters. As for the 2 adult children, prosecutors say they wish to not have contact with their father, but they do want the right to change their decision in the future. Suzanne Simpson's body is still missing, and along with the murder charges, Brad Simpson also faces charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, tampering with a corpse, and possession of a prohibited weapon. In a recently unsealed indictment, it was revealed that Suzanne Simpson's DNA was found on an electric saw owned by Brad. Prosecutors say he knowingly tried to conceal that saw as the investigation was going on. Also earlier this week, Brad Simpson's longtime business partner, James Cotter, was formally indicted by a grand jury on charges of tampering with evidence and possession of a prohibited weapon as well. This comes after he posted bail on the same charges back in November. The judge also ordered no contact between him and Simpson during today's hearing.
You're in agreement with that?
I am.
Okay, and the no contact also includes no contact with James Cotter, correct?
That is correct, Judge. We're asking the court to put that in place.
And of course, we already know the court-issued gag order remains in place in this case in an effort to not taint the jury pool. Brad Simpson still remains behind bars on $3 million bond.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I was I am so sorry about that. I just I had forgot I had switched my mic off. Anyway, what I was just reading the article regarding Ethan Crumbley wanting to withdraw his guilty pleas. Judge Kwame Rowe from Oakland County said that the guilty plea was knowingly, voluntarily, and accurately given. The prosecutor, Karen McDonald, mentioned that these are the right decisions under the law, and they allow us to continue doing the most important things, focusing on the victims and their families, and on preventing future shootings. As you remember, Ethan Crumbley was 15 years of age when he brought a gun to school and killed 4 students and wounded others. He's now 18 years of age now and spending the rest of his life behind bars. James and Jennifer Crumbley, his parents, are serving 10-year prison terms for involuntary manslaughter after they were accused of making a gun accessible and ignoring their son's mental health. James and Jennifer are the first U.S. parents to be convicted in a school shooting committed by their child. So I should be up. I should be okay now, shouldn't I? I should be okay right now. Now, Amy. Anyway, Ethan Crumbley wanted to withdraw his guilty pleas, and I'm thinking, why? Even if you wanted to withdraw your guilty pleas, but it's already on the record. It doesn't matter if you were 15 then and 18 now. You've got to take responsibility for this anyway. Let's say the judge allowed you to withdraw your guilty plea. You go to trial. You shot and killed 4 victims, 4 of them, and you wounded so many more. What are your chances going to look like at trial? If it's first-degree murder charges, it's going to look a little like this. If I can pull the names of the victims in the shooting, just give me one moment. Oxford school shooting victims. Okay. I can pull this up through Wikipedia. Yeah, all I want are names. Okay, boom. All right. I said if you were to go to trial, and the jury were to look at all this evidence that against you, including the fact that you brought that gun to school, and this goes to a jury, this is how I see it coming back easy. For the murder of Madison Baldwin, guilty. For the murder of Tate Meyer, guilty. For the murder of Hannah St. Julia, guilty. And for the murder of Justin Schilling, guilty. Bottom line, oh yeah, it has been 3 years. It's been 3 years, and now he wanted to withdraw his guilty pleas. I stand with the judge when he said that those guilty pleas were knowingly, voluntarily, and accurately given. Knowingly, voluntarily, and accurately given. 4 victims dead. I don't know countless how many others were wounded. And the biggest guilties of them all were his own parents, because they allowed it to happen. They did not care enough to check on their son's mental health. Now they're doing time. And speaking of doing time, next on the docket, it's the sentencing of Richard Allen. Allen was accused and found and convicted in the deaths of Libby German and Abby Williams. Let's get ready to go to the courthouse for Richard Allen's fate. Oh, I guess I won't be able to, because it's something total. This video is something totally different. So I will go ahead and break this down for ya. Richard Allen, convicted of murdering 2 teenagers hiking outside of Delphi, has been sentenced to 130 years in prison. Let that sink in. 130 years in prison. "52-year-old Allen was convicted in November on all charges related to the murders of 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German on February 13, 2017. At his sentencing, Allen's attorneys said he maintains his innocence and is hopeful that the appellate process will provide him with an opportunity to present a full defense at a second trial. Yeah, right. Prosecutors said Allen acted alone when he abducted the girls from the abandoned railroad trestle known as the Monmouth High Bridge. A key piece of evidence in the case was a cell phone video captured by Libby showing a man approaching the girls on the bridge and ordering them down the hill. The following day, searchers found their bodies about a quarter of a mile away on private property. The case garnered national attention for years, but went cold until October 2022 when authorities announced they had arrested Allen, a pharmacy technician who lived and worked in Delphi. Since Allen's arrest, the case has taken on multiple twists and turns. As evidence was leaked, Allen's public defenders withdrew and were later reinstated, and defense filings claim Odinists were responsible for the girls' slayings. Special Judge Fran Gull ruled Allen's defense could not submit any evidence that states the murders were committed by a third party at trial. Judge Gull banned cameras from the courtroom during Allen's trial. Reporters were also barred from taking any electronic devices inside the courthouse, leaving them to rely on paper and pens. At the conclusion of the day's proceedings, Judge Gull allowed members of the media inside the courthouse to view any exhibits introduced that day for 15 minutes. Richard Allen, 130 years. I think it's safe to say that he's another one that will never see the light of day again. 130 years. But word is now that the appeal process is already moving forward. So again, 2025, I'm gonna have to wait and see what develops with that, and if there will truly be an appeal of this sentence, the possibility of Richard Allen getting a new trial? We'll just have to wait and see. We have a brand new case where a woman is accused of murdering her husband outside court amid divorce. Tanya Saucier is accused of murdering James Saucier, whom she had just divorced, outside the courthouse. Youch. What's more painful, ladies and gentlemen? You tell me. Love or divorce? The estranged wife of a Mississippi man is in custody after she allegedly shot and killed him outside a courthouse following the conclusion of divorce proceedings between the two. The shooting happened just before 1 in the afternoon in the entryway of the Pearl River County Chancery Court in Poplarville, according to the sheriff's office. The victim was identified as James Ray Saucier, age 62. His wife, 49-year-old Tanya Saucier, was apprehended after the shooting and is being held at the Lenore Rowell Criminal Justice Center in Poplarville on a charge of murder. James Saucier's attorney, Dan Rafferty, said the couple's divorce proceedings had just ended when gunfire broke out. I was handling some paperwork when things went crossways, Rafferty told WLOX-TV. Tanya Saucier's attorney, State Representative Jansen Owen, a Republican from Hattiesburg, said he was walking out of the building when his client opened fire. Basically, I left the courthouse and she opened fire. I did ultimately subdue her, at which point she made threats against me, Owen said. I administered first aid as best I could to Mr. Saucier. Family member Joanna Peterson told WVUE-TV the family is distraught by what happened. It's confusing for us. Tragic, Peterson said. The family is in shock, as well as frustrated and enraged. Court documents show James Saucier was indicted in August on charges of aggravated assault and domestic violence with a deadly weapon. He was accused of shooting Tanya Saucier 5 times, including once in the face, a year ago. My client said he was defending himself, Rafferty said. That trial had been set for March 4th. Apparently, Tanya decided, you know what? I'm not going to wait that long. I'm going to take the law into my own hands. Now she's going to be charged with murder. Well, now that's where my other favorite saying goes. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time, or pay the fine. We'll see what happens when Tanya Saucier goes on trial in 2025. Alright. Next up. A man is charged with the murder of a gay man at a dog park, and he stood trial in Florida. Did this go to a jury, or is this case ongoing? Oh yeah, this one will go to trial next month. Gerald Radford testified that he feared for his own life when he shot John Walt Lay at a Tampa dog park on February 2nd. Local news outlets report Radford testified that Lay repeatedly hit him in the face just before the shooting. I don't know if I told him to stop or not, but he wasn't stopping. Radford testified in a hearing before Hillsborough Circuit Court Judge Samantha Ward. Radford is charged with second-degree murder. Prosecutors are seeking additional hate crime penalties if Radford is convicted. Defense attorney cited Florida's stand your ground law in seeking immunity from prosecution. Such laws say people have no duty to retreat before using deadly force when they believe they are defending themselves against a violent crime. Prosecutors dispute Radford's story. Several witnesses testified that Radford had harassed Lay for months before the shooting. repeatedly using homophobic slurs. Prosecutors presented recorded jail phone calls where Radford used a homophobic slur to describe Lay after his arrest. Paul Gumpert, a friend of Lay, testified that it wasn't in Lay's character to be the aggressor. He described Lay as very mild-mannered and very dismissive of any pressure against him. Lay shared a video claiming Radford had threatened him at the dog park before the shooting. In the video, Lay claimed he had an encounter with Radford at the park and that Radford told him, "You're going to die," quote unquote. Radford acknowledged using slurs against Lay, but told Assistant State Attorney Justin Diaz under questioning that he treated Lay differently because of the way he treated me and not because of his sexual orientation. Defense attorneys pointed to a text message Lay sent after the video as proof he planned to attack Lay. Lay wrote in part that he would try to tackle Radford if he blocked his path again. In addition, he wrote, "This weekend should be drama." In response to questions from defense attorney Matthew Futch, the 66-year-old Radford said the 52-year-old Lay had completely overpowered him. "Had you not drawn your firearm to defend yourself, do you believe you would have suffered great bodily harm or death?" Futch asked. Radford, crying, answered yes. The prosecutors said there was no scuffle before the shooting. They said the trajectory of the bullet through Lay's body, as traced by an autopsy, contradicts Radford's claim that Lay was on top of him. Hillsborough County Chief Medical Examiner Kelly Devers testified that it would be hard for a bullet to take the path it did if Lay had been laying or kneeling on Radford. Diaz argued that there are inconsistencies with Radford's account. "It's a hate crime," Diaz said. Judge Samantha Ward issued a ruling on December 12th that Radford failed to meet the burden of proof in the stand your ground hearing. Radford's case will head to trial on the week of January 6th. The prosecution announced it will seek a hate crime enhancement if Lay is convicted. So, let's see. This is so nuts. Agreed. Definitely one to watch in 2025. Again, agreed. 2025 is gonna be the year that a lot of cases go down, and we find out exactly where these defendants will stand as far as their fate goes, including this one. And, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up my 2024. That is going to wrap up my 2024 with Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. And I want to say to each and every one of you, thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. Thank you for making 2024, as wild as it was, the best that it was. I also want to send shout outs to everybody that inspired me to bring this channel to where it is right now. And I won't try to call everybody out. Because if I do, I may miss somebody, and I'm gonna end up saying count it to my head, not to my heart. I also want to send huge shout outs to the absolute best team for trial coverage on cable and streaming TV. The crew at Court TV, including Julie Grant for opening statements, Ted Rollins, Kelly Craft, Crime and Justice reporter Matt Johnson, Julia Janae, the Honorable Judge Ashley Wilcott and Michael Ayala for Court TV Live, and of course, my main man 50 grand, Vinny Politan for closing arguments. You guys are You guys are the best in what you do. Keep on doing it in 2025, and I look forward to following your coverage and bringing it to everybody here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't shout this woman out, and if I don't, I will be in the doghouse and not worthy of wearing this particular T-shirt. That proclaims me the world's best husband. I want to shout out to my wife, Crystal, Lady Outlaw. I love you. I love you with all my heart. That's for her. Guys, I wish you all the merriest of Christmases. Happy holidays, however you celebrate. Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever. I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. As always, I want you to take that love. I want you to pass it around to everybody you come in contact with. If you want to get in contact with me on any case at all, hit me up. Bethea'S Byte Reloaded on Facebook. Hit me up on X at EKB316 in all caps. Bethea'S Byte Reloaded here on YouTube. EKB316 on Instagram. That's in lowercase letters. Catch me on TikTok while you can before the January 19th ban. That's at King of Hearts 316 2021. And you can still email me, kingofhearts316_09 at outlook.com. Alright, let me see what Amy says before I go ahead and put a nice tidy bow on this. Oh, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I would love for one day you come up live. And God bless you, and God bless all of you too. All right, one last time. Let me remind you where you are and where you have been. This is your home for true crime news without all the drama, where your opinions matter, where lively debates are encouraged, where your voice is heard, and as always, above all else, justice served. So once again, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a prosperous New Year from everyone here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. And until we meet again in 2025, you all know what to do from here. I love you guys. Double that love. And bye.
Thanks for watching and joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and drop me a comment on this video. Also, be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.